Hello, everybody. My name's True Demon, and I am the Devil's Stockbroker. Today, we have some really big news for BBIG. Vinco Ventures has just announced today that they have fulfilled their interim CEO role, and that is huge news for us because guess who could be the candidate? Eric Noble, just today, who is currently the sitting chief security officer and chief of staff at Vinco Ventures, tweeted out the investor relations article published by Vinco Ventures today, saying that the interim CEO role is been fulfilled. This little piece of welcome news says definitively that Chief Executive Officer Ross Miller and his team, including Gabe Hunterton, president, have departed the company effective immediately. Personally, I'm really relieved to see that the court-appointed executives have been removed from the company and that they will no longer be soaking up any additional cash that is so precious and so limited for Vinco Ventures right now, and that we will finally be getting somebody with an executive mindset ready to clear the way, break down all of the obstacles to begin using Vinco Ventures' flagship product, Lomotive. Vinco Ventures states that it is set to appoint a new permanent CEO with proven leadership experience at successful and prestigious media companies and entertainment brands. The candidate was subject to an extended vetting process and whose vision aligns with the company's long-term plans to grow and expand Vinco's content-driven ecosystem of businesses. The chairman of the board, Rod Vanderbilt, is currently sitting as the role of executive chairman and is leading all the Vinco teams on a day-to-day basis, effectively acting as interim CEO until a permanent CEO position is filled. We expect that to take place very soon. Eric Finman echoed the message that came out of Vinco Ventures from its investor relations desk when he also published a thank you note to Ross Miller and Gabe Hunterton, which, take it for what you will. He was calling for their resignation just a couple of weeks ago. But that being said, I'm really glad to see that the company is moving forward and that a new candidate is being picked. Do I think that Eric Finman is the candidate for CEO and president? It is a possibility, especially given the ultimatum that was leveled that he had the voting power necessary to install himself. However, the description stated somebody who is particularly experienced with social media companies. Eric not exactly fits that description, though he has led a lot of companies to success, especially in the crypto space. As far as I'm aware, it doesn't really necessarily have experience as a social media manager. Nevertheless, I wouldn't be upset to see him take the position of CEO. If such is the case, then I wish him or whoever the future CEO is of Vinco Ventures the best of luck, and hopefully he will take his role seriously and begin acting on some of the catalysts that have begun to manifest themselves in the market to date. The biggest one being the banned TikTok movement, which has its own hashtag and has been trending on Twitter multiple times on multiple days over the last month. This has really gotten out of control, and the fact that BBIG still to this date hasn't really capitalized on this growing movement to get rid of TikTok and the CCP's involvement in the app's development and potentially the surveilling of American citizens using this subterfuge app. As it currently stands, TikTok is now being staged to be banned by federal workers from multiple states. So far, 7 have signed the bill. It looks as though this is going before a congressional vote. We'll see what happens. For me personally, having formerly been a member of the U.S. military, having been in the information security space my entire life, I find the app is too dangerous. So I would really like to see that it's banned wholesale from both personal and workplace devices in the government. My hope is that Congress will stand in unison against this and it will further push TikTok away and get it all off of American citizens' phones and encourage everybody to start getting rid of it off of their kids' phones as well. This is me purely stating this as somebody who is concerned about information security and surveillance and privacy. It really does matter to me. No matter what happens with Vinco Ventures, this is something that personally matters to me. I think that TikTok is dangerous. That being said, as a Vinco Ventures investor, I do find that this is an extremely timely opportunity for Vinco to take advantage and push its Lomotive platform, being that they are an entirely US-based company and they have outreach to multiple nations with excellent content creators and a wonderfully fresh app that's ready to embrace new development ideas and get a new base of supporters that are now going to be looking for an alternative from TikTok. And I really do want to take this opportunity to shout out the Federal Communications Commissioner, Brendan Carr. Mr. Carr, having taken his seat with the Biden administration at the Federal Communications Commission, has been extremely vocal about the need to get rid of TikTok and get it off of phones in the United States. one particular Twitter user, Jeff, jokingly mentioned that this man has done more for Vinco Venture stock than the Vinco executives to date have, and I'd struggle to disagree with him. But that being said, I do want to tip my hat to Mr. Brennan Carr for taking this threat very seriously and being so vocal and pressing this matter to Congress in order to get it out in front of them, because it is truly crucial that we keep any kind of surveillance software off of our phones and out of our app stores, because most people truly don't know the difference and don't know how to identify the threat. I'd like to take the opportunity now to go over some technical analysis for BBIG. Today, it had a heck of a run. For a brief moment, my trade on BBIG, which was previously yesterday down $5,000, is now already, it was briefly green, like almost $500 green, and it's retraced back down to this level. I don't have a stop loss on this trade, but I've just been kind of holding on to this. This is a paper account, by the way, just so that everybody's aware. I have a different portfolio with my actual BBIG position. But this is just to kind of illustrate the movement and help me keep track of it versus a risk managed portfolio that I manage for the Hell's Trading Floor Discord. And just seeing the volatility in this and the amount of volume that was traded in just the last 24 hours is absolutely crazy to me. BBIG just skyrocketed from 51 cents all the way up to a high of 70 cents, breaking almost 71 cents at one point during the day. Moving out to the 1 hour, you can very quickly identify that this was a perfect move off of a double bottom that I called out on Wednesday. And you can see that we had this rejection off of the 200 period moving average. So BBIG was this was a perfect technical move, perhaps a bit more volatile than I expected. I'm really amazed at how quickly the news of the CEO change went through and just how bullish of a reaction it was. This is monumental for the stock. The next move to be looking for is to see how it reacts to this 100 period EMA. Right now, it does seem to be holding it, but the candle closed directly below the 100 period hourly EMA. So technically, this could be either a break or a maintaining of support. We don't know yet. The move hasn't completed just yet. So it won't be until tomorrow that we see how BBIG reacts. What I expect is for market makers to try to push the stock back down as close as it can to 50 cents, because there's a lot of call contracts that are expiring at those levels for December the 16th. But there is the possibility for the stock to move even further up. I don't think that $1 is really in the cards for it, at least not for Friday. That's a bit too lofty of a goal. But it is worth noting that the gamma ramp begins this Friday. So if somehow all of these options were to go in the money, BBIG would effectively be setting off a massive gamma ramp for several million shares and a decent portion of the float. As of today's close, if BBIG were to break $1, it would put more than 5% of the current traded float in the money for just this Friday alone. It's a massive portion of the BBIG float, and it's worth keeping an eye on. At present, there's just over 1% of the float in the money at 50 cents. Thankfully, though, this is really not the most important date. In fact, it's not even in December that is most critical. The most critical date for BBIG and its gamma ramp setup right now is squarely on January the 20th. Combined between the next 3 Fridays, there is at least 5% of the stock that is sitting on the float. But on just January by itself, between the strike of 50 cents and $1, January 20th expiration alone accounts for 1.5% of the total stock float. And to be honest with you, this only accounts for the trading as of the close. Right now, the open interest and the volume on all calls for $1 between December, January, and April, BBIG's traded more than 12,000 call contracts in just today. And most of these options are trading for less than $10 per contract. So they're exceptionally cheap for the distance. I would caution everybody that these are really far out of the money, relatively speaking. So it's not something that I encourage people to jump into. I know that folks want me to talk about it, but options in BBIG are quite a dangerous proposition. considering where it's traded. I would suggest that if you are insistent on trading an option in BBIG, if you want to have calls no matter what, might I suggest considering in the money calls just because it gives you more time, more intrinsic value to the option. But this is not financial advice. It's ultimately your money and it's your decision. As far as gamma ramps go, the way to build a gamma ramp and cause it to be triggered is for every single strike between the current security's underlying price and at least 2 to 3 strikes away to be stacked up so that more than ideally 20% of the stock's float is on the chain and running in the money actively. In order for that to happen, you would need to see BBIG add more than 100,000 call contracts to all of those strikes combined between 50-cent strike all the way up to $2. And that would be sufficient to create a much bigger gamma ramp, sufficient to actually create a gamma squeeze on a similar scale to what we saw, such as what BBIG experienced back in August and September of 2021, which is precisely the price action that we saw right here. I'm going based off of memory. I don't have historical options data that goes back this far, but from what I recall at the time, BBIG had more than 20% of its float that was sitting on the chain at this point, and that's what led to this massive gap up that occurred in just a couple of trading days between August the 27th on Friday and August the 30th that following Monday. So while it's possible to see something like that happen again, it would require a tremendous amount of call buying, which basically goes hand in hand with massive risk taking, and it's not something that I would encourage. What would be far more effective to see additional price action in BBIG is continued share buying at these levels. Right now, BBIG is still trading at a very modest 61-cent level. That's very cheap, at least cheap to what I consider the stock to be worth, which is vastly superior, especially if you give it a long time frame and a long runway for the next 5 to 10 years. BBIG, even as a squeeze play, is really attractive, but as a long-term investment, assuming its survival and its continued success as a company, if it were to even take even 1% of the market share that Facebook or YouTube have for short-form content, you would see BBIG just go roaring in its valuation and the amount of revenue that it can drive. And that's not even taking AdRiser into account. AdRiser being the ad revenue platform that Vinco Ventures purchased in a joint venture with Zash Global Media. I will end on the short exempt data for BBIG today, which was pretty much on par with what we saw December the 8th when BBIG jumped in valuation from a low of 52 cents all the way up to a high of 64.99 cents. The price of the stock is definitely pushing on a ceiling right now, and it does appear to me that market makers are using a lot of short exempts in order to keep the price suppressed. So I do emphasize caution in this. We are witnessing what appears to be a large institutional firm that is trying very hard to keep the price of BBIG under control. You're fighting a massive institution, which compared to most retail investors has what is to us an equivalent to infinite money. It is extremely difficult to fight against an institution with access to trading algorithms that operate on that scale and that frequency. However, it is proven that with enough gamma potential on the options chain and enough purchasing power from the buy side on side of retail investors, especially if those purchases are directed towards the lit exchanges, specifically in BBIG's case, the NASDAQ, those trades are proven to have a direct impact to the national best bid and offer. So if at any point we see whales buying and directing their purchases, their market orders towards those lit exchanges, it has a proven effect on massive, massive price climb and momentum. I'm going to end the video here, but before I do, I really do want to emphasize to everybody that the stock market is a very risky place. And right now, things are getting pretty scary, especially with what happened with Zach Morris. So please understand that the information that I am giving you is just data. It's just data for you to analyze and make your own judgments about. It's not my responsibility to tell you what to do, and I am not suggesting that you purchase this stock. It is entirely up to each individual to manage their own risk. And I'm not going to encourage frothy behavior that leads people to just gambling away their money. I will never, ever suggest anyone does that. I'm a fan of using risk management and keeping your expectations in check. BBIG is an extremely risky stock that you should only invest what money you are willing to lose in on the off chance that it does play out in the form of a short squeeze. The potential is there. The data reflects it. It is a possible short squeeze. But as with all short squeezes, as with all stock market investments, it does come with inherent risk. So please understand that going into this, and please be careful. I look forward to seeing the next piece of news coming out of the desk of the investor relations from BBIG, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time. But until then, have a hell of a time in the markets. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to watch this video. If you enjoyed the content and you found this information helpful to you in your own trading strategies, be sure to leave a like on the video. It helps out the YouTube algorithm and helps us reach out to others who need this information too. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see more. And if you're not a member of Hell's Trading Floor already, consider joining our Discord by joining us at hellstradingfloor.com, which will allow you to sign up for our Discord at discord.gg/hellstradingfloor. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Until then, have a hell of a time in the markets.